What happens when the man you buried comes back to life covered in someone else's blood? Kola Adeyemi stood in the rain with a machete in his right hand and 3 bodies at his feet. The abandoned warehouse at the edge of Igbo Odo stank of rust and river water and something else, something darker that clung to the back of your throat like smoke. His chest heaved. Blood ran down his forearm, mixing with rainwater, dripping from his knuckles onto concrete that had seen too much death already. One of the men on the ground was still breathing, barely, making wet gurgling sounds that meant his lung had collapsed. Kola didn't look down. He couldn't. Because if he looked down, he'd see what he'd become again, and he'd spent 3 years trying to forget. "You should have stayed dead," the dying man whispered, and then his breathing stopped. Kola's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out with shaking hands. The screen was cracked, but he could still read the name. Zainabu, the woman he'd risked everything for, the woman who'd gotten him into this. His thumb hovered over the green button. Outside, thunder rolled across the river like drums at a funeral. He pressed the answer. "Kola." Her voice was small, terrified, nothing like the bold, sharp-tongued woman who'd laughed in his wife's face just 3 days ago. "Kola, they're coming back. They said if you don't—" The line went dead. Kola stared at the phone, then at the machete in his other hand, then at the warehouse door where more headlights were appearing through the rain, spreading across the walls like searching fingers. He'd killed 3 men tonight. He was about to kill more. And the worst part, the part that made his stomach turn, was that it felt like coming home. But before we dive deeper into how Kola became the man standing in that warehouse, before we understand why 3 bodies weren't enough and why the woman on that phone had destroyed everything he'd built, I need you to do something. Hit that subscribe button right now for African Folktale by Dera. Seriously, don't scroll past this. Like this video. And drop a comment telling me what time it is, where you are, and what country you're watching from. Because this story about blood and love and the debts we can never escape, this is just the beginning. Now let's go back. Let's go back to before the blood. Let's go back to when Kola thought peace was possible. 6 weeks earlier, Kola drove a commercial bus through the chaotic streets of Igbo Odo like a man with nothing to prove. He navigated potholes and motorcycles and pedestrians with the quiet efficiency of someone who'd learned that attention was dangerous. Other drivers shouted and honked and leaned out their windows cursing, but Kola just drove. Steady, calm, invisible. That was the goal. Be invisible. Be forgettable. Be the opposite of what he used to be. "Ogre driver, you go past that junction?" A woman in the back clutched a screaming baby and 3 shopping bags. "Yes, ma. 2 more stops." "Thank you, sir. God bless you." God bless you. Kola almost smiled. If she knew what those hands on the steering wheel had done, she wouldn't be asking God to bless anything. But that was the point, wasn't it? Nobody knew. Nobody in Igbo Odo knew that their quiet, respectful bus driver used to be called something else, used to be feared, used to make men cross the street when they saw him coming. He dropped the woman at her junction, collected his fare, and continued the route. It was Thursday. Thursdays he finished early, went home to Mariam, his wife, and pretended he was a man who deserved her. Mariam who'd stood by him when he'd crawled out of the river 3 years ago, bleeding and broken, begging for a chance to be different. Mariam who'd taken him to her pastor, who'd prayed over him while he vomited up 3 years of violence and guilt. Mariam who'd married him quietly, who'd never asked questions about the scars, who'd built him back into something that could walk in daylight. But Thursdays had a complication now. Thursdays he also saw Zainabu. He parked the bus at the depot, collected his earnings from the supervisor and walked 3 streets over to the market. Zainabu sold fabrics and ready-made clothes from a stall near the fish section. She was loud while Mariam was quiet. Mariam was soft. She was dangerous while Mariam was safe. Kola knew he shouldn't. I knew it was wrong. Knew it dishonored everything Mariam had given him. But Zainabu made him feel alive in a way peace never could, and that should have been his first warning. "You're late," Zainabu said without looking up from folding a wrapper. She was beautiful in that careless way some women were, all curves and confidence and zero apology. "Traffic. Always traffic with you." She glanced up, smiled that smile that had gotten him into this. "Are you staying tonight or running back to your saint?" "Don't call her that." "Why not? Isn't that what she is? Perfect Mariam, so holy, so forgiving, so boring." Kola should have walked away then, should have recognized the poison in that tone. But he didn't. He stayed. And 3 hours later, when Mariam asked where he'd been, he lied and said the bus had broken down. Mariam looked at him with those eyes that saw too much and said nothing, just served his food and sat across from him in silence that felt like judgment. That night he couldn't sleep, lay in bed next to his wife and thought about his lover and wondered which version of himself was real. The driver or the enforcer, the husband or the adulterer, the man trying to be good or the man who'd never really changed. Thunder rumbled in the distance. The rainy season is coming early this year. The river would rise soon. The river is always remembered. At the market the next day, Zainabu did something unforgivable. She saw Mariam. Mariam had come to buy fabric for a customer, walking through the market with that quiet dignity she carried everywhere. Zainabu watched her browse, watched her select material, watched her pay. And then, loud enough for half the market to hear, Zainabu said, "Some women dress in expensive fabric and still look cheap. Must be the way they carry themselves." Mariam stopped, turned, looked at Zainabu with eyes that had seen through Kola's lies from the beginning and probably saw through Zainabu's too. "Words travel faster than feet," Mariam said quietly. "Be careful where you go." "Is that a threat?" "It's a warning. The kind old women give young foolish ones before the world teaches them harder lessons." Mariam walked away. Zainabu laughed, and Kola, watching from across the street where he'd been buying cigarettes he didn't smoke anymore, felt something cold settle in his chest. A premonition, maybe. Or just the recognition that he'd set something in motion he couldn't stop. The elders had a saying, "A man who runs from the river will always hear its call in his sleep." Kola had been running for 3 years, but standing there watching his wife walk away and his lover laugh, he heard it. That call. Distant but getting closer. The river wanted him back. That night, Zainabu heard footsteps in her room. She woke at 3 in the morning to the sound of something sweeping, the soft, rhythmic brush, brush, brush of a broom on concrete. But she lived alone. She sat up, heart hammering, and saw nothing. Just darkness and the faint outline of her furniture and that sound, that impossible sound continuing. Brush, brush, brush. Like someone cleaning the floor. Like someone preparing the room for something. Or someone. "Who's there?" Her voice cracked. The sweeping stopped. The silence that followed was worse. Zainabu grabbed her phone, turned on the flashlight and swept it across the room. Nothing. Nobody. Just her clothes hanging on the wall and her mirror reflecting her terrified face and the floor that looked freshly swept even though she hadn't touched a broom in 2 days. She didn't sleep the rest of the night, sat with her back against the wall, phone in hand, listening. When dawn finally came, she convinced herself it was a dream. Stress. Guilt, maybe, though she'd never admit to feeling guilty about anything. But 3 mornings later, she found sand in her bed. Just a small pile of it, fine red sand like the kind from riverbanks, arranged in a circle on her pillow. She hadn't brought sand into her house, had no reason to. But there it was, and when she tried to brush it away, her hand trembled so badly she knocked the whole pillow onto the floor. "This is nonsense," she said out loud to her empty room. "Superstitious nonsense." But that afternoon at the market, a black bird landed on her stall and wouldn't leave. Just sat there on the wooden frame, staring at her with eyes that looked too intelligent, too knowing. Other vendors noticed. started whispering. One old woman, Mama Toyin, who sold vegetables 3 stalls down, came over and looked at the bird, and then at Zainabu, and shook her head. "What?" Zainabu snapped. "Nothing, daughter, nothing at all." But Mama Toyin's face said everything, said warnings Zainabu didn't want to hear. The bird stayed until sunset, then it flew away toward the river. Zainabu closed her stall early and went home and found Kola waiting outside her door. "You can't be here," she said. My wife knows." Kola's face was strange, distant. Or she will soon. "Everything's falling apart, Zainabu. I can feel it. You're being paranoid." "Am I? You haven't noticed anything strange?" She wanted to tell him about the sweeping, the sand, the bird. Wanted to confess that maybe they'd crossed some line that couldn't be uncrossed. But pride wouldn't let her. "Nothing strange except you showing up at my door talking crazy." Kola stared at her. "You disrespected her, in public, in front of people who know us both. So, you chose me, didn't you? Or are you too much of a coward to admit it?" "I didn't choose anyone. I'm trying to." He stopped, closed his eyes. "Never mind. Just be careful, Zainabu. Please, something's coming." He left. Zainabu went inside and tried to convince herself he was wrong. But that night she dreamed of drowning, of dark water filling her lungs while something swept the riverbed clean beneath her sinking body. She woke up gasping, and for the first time since this whole thing started, she was genuinely afraid. Kola's house was quiet when he got home. Too quiet. Mariam was in the kitchen cooking his favourite soup, the kind she only made for special occasions and this thought made his blood run cold, for journeys. In some traditions, you cooked a man's favourite meal before he travelled somewhere far. Somewhere he might not return from. "Mariam?" "Sit." Her voice was calm. She didn't turn around, just kept stirring the pot. "Eat when it's ready. I need to tell you something. I know what you need to tell me. I've known for weeks." Now she turned, and her eyes were dry but devastated. "The river is calling you back, Kola. Not because you loved her, because you dishonoured me. And shame, real shame, has a current. It pulls men under." "I'm sorry, God, Mariam, I'm so sorry." "Sorry doesn't change what's coming." She ladled soup into a bowl, placed it in front of him. "Eat. You'll need your strength. For what? For what you'll have to do, for who you'll have to become again." She sat across from him, folded her hands. "I'm pregnant, Kola." The words hit like a fist to the chest. "What?" 3 months. I was waiting for the right time to tell you. But there is no right time now, is there? Her voice finally cracked. "Our child will be born into whatever comes next. And I can't protect them from your past. Only you can. So when they come, because they will come, you do what you have to do. You bring her back. Not because she deserves it. Because our son should not grow up knowing his father left a woman to die, even one who disrespected me." Kola couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. A child, his child, Mariam's child, growing inside her while he'd been, "I don't deserve you." "No," Mariam agreed. "But you're what I have. So be better than you were. Be the man I believed you could be, even if you have to become the monster you were to do it." She reached across the table, placed something in his hand. A small leather pouch, protection charms, the kind her grandmother had made. The river never releases those who drown in blood. But maybe it will take payment instead. That night, Kola lay awake, listening to Mariam's breathing and his own heartbeat, and the distant sound of the river flowing past the edge of town. He thought about the life growing inside his wife. Thought about the life he'd left behind. Thought about the machete wrapped in red cloth under the floorboards in the spare room. The one he'd sworn he'd never touch again. And he knew, with the certainty of a man who'd spent 3 years running from fate, that the running was over. The Black Oars came for Zainabu on a Tuesday. 4 men in a canoe, sliding up to the dock behind her house at sunset. They didn't knock, didn't announce themselves. Just kicked in her door and grabbed her while she was washing dishes, one hand over her mouth, another around her waist, lifting her like she weighed nothing. She tried to scream, tried to fight, but these were men who'd done this before. Professional, efficient, terrifying. They threw her in the bottom of the canoe and pushed off into the river. Water sloshed around her. The sun was setting, turning the river red as blood, and Zainabu realized with perfect clarity that she'd been warned and she'd ignored every warning, and now the current had her. The message reached Kola while he was counting the day's earnings at the bus depot. A boy who couldn't have been more than 12 handed him a folded piece of paper and ran before Kola could ask questions. The note was water-stained, written in handwriting he recognized. Baba Kadiri, the man who'd taught him everything about violence and nothing about mercy. The man he'd betrayed to save Mariam 3 years ago. "Come back to the river," the note read, "or we send her body downstream." No signature. I didn't need one. Kola's hands shook so badly the paper fluttered like it was alive. The supervisor was saying something about tomorrow's route, but Kola wasn't listening, was already walking, then running, then sprinting toward home. His mind raced. They had Zainabu. The Black Oars had Zainabu. Which meant they knew about him, knew about her, knew he was alive when they thought he was dead. But how? How had they found out after 3 years of silence? And then he understood. Zainabu. 2 weeks ago she'd followed him. He'd seen her from a distance, thought nothing of it at the time. But what had he been doing that night? Meeting with Officer Taiwo, the police officer he'd worked with 3 years ago, the one he'd fed information to, the one who'd helped him send 3 Black Oars members to prison in exchange for his freedom. Zainabu had seen that meeting. And Zainabu, in her desperate need to control him, to have power over him, had done something catastrophically stupid. She'd threatened to expose him. He remembered now. She'd mentioned it casually one night like it was a joke. "I know your secrets, Kola. I know what you really are. So don't think you can just walk away from me back to your boring wife. Choose me publicly, or I'll whisper your secrets to the right people." He'd thought she was bluffing, though her threats were empty pride. But she'd done it. She'd let something slip, somewhere, to someone. And now the Black Oars knew he was alive, knew he'd betrayed them, and they'd taken the woman who'd exposed him as bait to bring him home. Mariam was in the garden when he got there, watering her vegetables like it was any other evening. She looked up as he burst through the gate, took one look at his face, and knew. They took her. It wasn't a question. Mariam set down the watering can and wiped her hands on her wrapper. "Then you know what you have to do." "Mariam, Don't apologize again. Just go. Do what you're good at. Save her. Come back alive." She touched her stomach, that small protective gesture pregnant women make. "Your child needs a father, even one with blood on his hands." Kola wanted to say something profound, something that would make this moment mean something, but there were no words. So he just nodded and went to the spare room and knelt and pulled up the loose floorboard and stared at what was hidden beneath. The machete was still wrapped in red cloth, exactly where he'd buried it 3 years ago. Next to it, a knife with a curved blade, and a small notebook filled with addresses, names, weaknesses. The anatomy of violence, catalogued by a man who'd been very good at his job. Kola unwrapped the machete. The blade was clean, but he could still see ghosts on it, memories of who he'd cut, how they'd fallen, what sounds they'd made. His hands didn't shake now. That was a terrible thing. The moment he touched that handle, the shaking stopped, like his body recognized this, recognized him. He tucked the knife in his belt, slid the machete into a canvas bag, and walked back through the house. Mariam was still in the garden, facing away, and he was grateful. Grateful she didn't have to see him like this, didn't have to watch the transformation. The quiet bus driver was gone. The thing walking out of that house was older, colder, something that had learned to smile but never forgot how to kill. Igbo Odo looked different at night. Streetlights threw long shadows. The market was closed, stalls shuttered, but you could still smell fish and spices and human sweat baked into the concrete. Kola moved through back alleys, avoiding main roads, heading towards the river. The Black Oars controlled the docks, the warehouses, the network of channels that fed into the main river. They'd been here for 20 years, outlasting police raids and gang wars and government crackdowns through a simple philosophy: be more brutal than anyone else. Baba Kadiri had been the one to teach Kola that brutality was a language. That measured violence spoke louder than chaos, that if you hurt someone precisely, publicly, creatively, you only had to do it once for everyone else to fall in line. Kola had been a good student, maybe too good. That's why when he'd decided to leave, when he'd fallen in love with Mariam and seen a possibility of something different, he hadn't just walked away. He'd burned the bridge, fed information to Officer Taiwo, helped set up the raid that captured 3 of Baba Kadiri's best men. Then faked his own death in the river and disappeared. For 3 years it had worked. For 3 years he'd been free. And now, walking through the dark toward the water, he understood that freedom had always been an illusion. The river never releases anyone. It just lets you think you've escaped while the current slowly pulls you back. He reached Mama Ejiro's house first. She'd been the gang's safe housekeeper, the one who fed them and patched them up and never asked questions. Old now, maybe 70, but her eyes were still sharp when she opened the door and saw him standing there. "I heard your footsteps before you knocked," she said. "Same heavy walk, same quiet rage. The river sent you back." "They took her. Which one is she? The wife who saved you or the fool girl who thought she could replace her?" "The fool." Mama Ejiro studied him in the yellow light from her kerosene lamp. Then she sighed and stepped aside. "Come in. You'll need supplies and you'll need to hear something first." Inside, the house smelled like pepper soup and old memories. Mama Ejiro went to a cupboard, pulled out something wrapped in leather. "Unwrap it." His old knife, the one he'd thought he'd lost in the river, the one with his initials carved into the handle. "Baba Kadiri kept it," she said. "Kept it for 3 years. Knew you weren't dead. Couldn't prove it, but knew. And 2 weeks ago, a bold, stupid girl started asking questions at the dock, asking if anyone knew Kola, the enforcer, asking if the Black Oars still operated. Someone told Baba Kadiri he had people watch her. She led them to you." Kola closed his eyes. Zainabu. She hadn't just threatened to expose him. She'd actively tried to find his past, thinking it would give her leverage. And instead, she'd painted a target on both of them. "Where is he keeping her?" "Old Fish Warehouse, end of the North Dock, but Kola..." Mama Ejiro put her hand on his arm. "He knows you're coming. He wants you to come. This isn't about the girl. It's about you. About finishing what started 3 years ago." "I know." "You'll have to kill him. You know that, right? Can't just rescue her and leave. Baba Kadiri won't stop until one of you is dead." "I know that too." She pressed the knife into his hand. "Then go. Show him the ghost. Show him what happens when the river gives back what it swallowed." The North Dock was silent except for the slap of water against wood pilings. Kola approached from the landward side, moving through shadows between warehouses that smelled of rot and old fish. He'd wrapped the machete's blade in cloth to avoid reflections, kept the knife loose in his belt. His heart was steady. That should have frightened him. How steady his heart was. But fear was for men who had something to lose, and Kola had already lost everything the moment he'd touched that weapon under his floor. The warehouse Mama Ejiro had mentioned was dark, but there were voices inside. Low murmurs. Someone laughed. Kola counted 4 distinct voices, maybe 5. Not terrible odds. He'd fought worse. Done worse. But that was years ago and he'd been younger, faster. Hadn't spent 3 years growing soft, driving a bus, and pretending violence was something he'd left behind. He circled the building. There was a back entrance, rusted metal door half off its hinges. Through gaps in the walls, he could see lantern light, movement, the silhouette of a woman tied to a chair. Zainabu. She was alive. That was something. He'd expected worse, expected them to have already started, but Baba Kadiri was old school. Baba Kadiri believed in theatre, in making moments mean something. He'd be waiting for Kola to arrive before the real show began. Kola pushed through the back door. It squealed on bad hinges, announcing him exactly as intended. The voices inside stopped. Footsteps. Then someone called out, "He's here! Tell Baba!" The interior was one large open space. Concrete floor stained with things Kola didn't want to think about. Metal support beams casting long shadows from the lanterns hung on hooks. 4 men stood in a loose semicircle. One of them, the one who'd called out, was holding a machete. 2 others had knives. The 4th, lean and scarred, was unarmed, but that meant nothing. Kola recognized him. Tunde. One of Baba Kadiri's best. The kind of fighter who didn't need weapons because his whole body was one. And in the center, tied to a chair with rope that had already cut into her wrists, was Zainabu. Her face was bruised, one eye swollen shut, but she was conscious. When she saw Kola, she made a sound through the gag in her mouth, something between relief and terror. "The ghost returns," said a voice from the shadows. Baba Kadiri stepped into the light. He was older than Kola remembered. Maybe 60 now, his hair gone grey but his back still straight, his eyes still those cold, calculating stones that had taught Kola how to read fear in men's faces. He wore the same thing he always wore. Dark trousers, white shirt, no shoes. Said shoes made you slow, said bare feet felt what was coming. "Baba," Kola said quietly, 3 years. 3 years you let me believe you drowned. 3 years I mourned you like a son. And all that time you were what? Driving a bus? Living like a civilian?" Baba Kadiri shook his head. "Disappointed doesn't begin to cover it. I wanted out. Nobody wants out. They just want to pretend they're different from what they are." He gestured to Zainabu. "This girl, she came looking for you. Asked too many questions. Made too much noise. Let me be right to you. So in a way, you should thank her. Saved me the trouble of searching. Let her go. Your problem is with me. My problem is, you sent 3 of my men to prison. My problem is, you betrayed the Brotherhood. My problem is, you're alive when you should be dead. But you're right about one thing. She's not the problem. She's just the bait." He nodded to his men. "Kill her." The man with the machete stepped towards Zainabu. She screamed through the gag, and Kola moved. Fast. Faster than he'd moved in 3 years. The canvas bag hit the ground. The cloth around his machete blade unraveled mid-swing. He covered the distance in 3 strides, and the man with the raised machete barely had time to register movement before Kola's blade took him across the midsection. Not a killing blow, but enough to drop him. The other 2 with knives came at him from opposite sides. Kola pivoted. Used the first attacker's falling body as a shield. Felt a knife score across his shoulder. Pain, bright and clarifying. He swung low, caught one man's knee. The crunch was audible. The man went down screaming. Tunde came in unarmed. This was the real fight. Tunde moved like water, slipped Kola's swing, got inside his guard, drove an elbow into Kola's ribs that felt like getting hit with a hammer. Kola gasped, backpedaled, barely avoided a kick that would have shattered his knee. They circled each other. Tunde smiled. "You got soft, brother." Maybe. Probably. But soft didn't mean forgot. Kola feinted high, went low, and swept Tunde's legs. Tunde went down but rolled, came up fast. They traded blows, brutal efficient strikes aimed at joints and organs. Kola took a hit to the jaw that made his vision spark. Drove his knee into Tunde's stomach. They broke apart, both breathing hard. The third man with the knife, the one whose knee Kola had shattered, was crawling towards Zainabu. Kola saw it peripherally, saw the knife in the man's hand, saw him reaching for her. He made a choice, turned his back on Tunde, threw his machete. The blade spun end over end, caught lantern light, buried itself in the crawling man's shoulder. The man collapsed. Tunde hit Kola from behind, drove him face first into a support beam. Stars exploded. Blood filled Kola's mouth. He tasted iron and memory, the familiar copper flavour of violence. Tunde had him pinned, one arm wrenched behind his back, ready to snap it. This was it. This was how it ended. "Should have stayed dead," Tunde whispered. Then there was a wet thunk and Tunde's grip loosened. He made a confused sound and fell. Behind him stood Mama Ejiro with a bloodied piece of rebar. "You talk too much, Tunde," she said. Then to Kola, "Get up. Baba's watching." Kola pushed himself up, spitting blood. Across the warehouse, Baba Kadiri hadn't moved, was still just standing there, observing, like this was a test, like everything was always a test. "You brought the old woman," Baba Kadiri said. "Sentimental." "I brought myself," Mama Ejiro replied. "And I'm tired of watching young men destroy each other over pride. Let him take the girl. Let this be finished." "It's not about the girl." It never was. Baba Kadiri picked up a machete from the ground, the one Kola had thrown, walked slowly toward them, testing its weight. "It's about betrayal, about the fact that he made me look weak. About the fact that letting him walk away would make me look weaker. You understand, Mama? You've been around long enough. I understand you're a stubborn old fool who can't see that the river is taking us all eventually. Why rush it?" Baba Kadiri smiled. "Because some of us get to choose how we go. If you're still watching, if this story has its hooks in you, then do something for me right now. Like this video, subscribe to African Folktale by Dera, and comment below, tell me, do you think Kola deserves to save Zainabu after everything? Tell me where you're watching from and what time it is. Because we're about to reach the point where everything falls apart, where debts get paid in blood, and I want to know if you're ready for what comes next. They fought in the space between lantern light and shadow. Two men who'd once been brothers before betrayal drew a line neither could cross back over. Baba Kadiri moved with the patience of someone who'd been doing this longer, who knew that fights weren't won by speed, but by reading the moment before it happened. Kola was younger, angrier, fueled by 3 years of running and the desperate need to make it stop. Their blades met, and the sound echoed off warehouse walls like bells at a funeral. "You could have just left," Baba Kadiri said between strikes. "Could have faked your death and disappeared completely. But you had to be righteous. Had to send our brothers to prison. They were killing innocent people." Kola blocked a swing aimed at his neck. "Children got caught in the crossfire. You remember that? 8-year-old girl. Wrong place, wrong time. Casualties happen. She had a name. Amina. She had a name and you didn't even..." Kola's voice broke. He'd carried that with him, that memory, the thing that had finally broken through the numbness and made him see what he'd become. Little Amina with braids in her hair, walking home from school, caught in a spray of bullets meant for someone else. Dead before she hit the ground. "That girl was the price of business," Baba Kadiri said coldly. "You think the world is fair? You think good people don't die? They do. Every day. At least we were honest about what we were." "No, you were honest about what you were. I was just too blind to see it." They broke apart, circled. Both were bleeding now, multiple small cuts that would matter later if there was a later. Mama Ejiro had cut Zainabu's bonds. The girl was on her feet, swaying, one hand pressed to her ribs. She should run. Kola tried to signal her with his eyes. "Run. Get out." But she just stood there, watching, like she couldn't quite believe this was real, that this violence, this blood, was all because of her careless words. Tunde was stirring on the ground. The other men were either unconscious or smart enough to pretend to be. This had stopped being about the gang. This was personal now, the kind of personal that only ended one way. Baba Kadiri came at him low and fast. Kola read it a second too late. The blade scored across his side, shallow but enough to make him gasp. He countered, put everything behind it, and felt his machete bite into Baba Kadiri's shoulder. The older man grunted, pulled back. Blood ran down his arm, but his face didn't change. That stone mask that never showed pain or fear or anything human. You sent them to prison, Baba Kadiri continued, like they were having a conversation over drinks instead of trying to kill each other. And you know what happened to them there? 2 died, beaten to death in the yard. The 3rd hanged himself after 6 months. So your righteousness, your need to be good, killed them anyway. Just slower. More painful. The words hit harder than any blade. Kola had known. Somewhere deep down he'd known, but hearing it said out loud made it real, made him culpable in a different way. That's not on me. That's on the system. On you! Baba Kadiri's composure finally cracked. You put them there. You betrayed brotherhood for what? A woman? For love? He spat the word like it was poison. Love makes men weak. Makes them forget who they are. Love made me human again. Then die human. Baba Kadiri lunged. Kola sidestepped, but not fast enough. The blade caught his forearm, bit deep. He felt the cut grind against bone. His machete fell from numb fingers. This was it. This was the end. Baba Kadiri raised his blade for the killing blow. Time slowed. Kola saw everything with perfect clarity. The lantern light catching on steel, the water stains on the warehouse ceiling, Mama Ejiro's hand covering her mouth, Zainabu's one good eye wide with horror. And in that frozen moment he thought of Mariam, thought of her hand on her stomach, thought of his child who would grow up without a father, who would only know the story of the man who died trying to save his mistress. The blade came down, and Zainabu screamed. Not a scream of fear. A scream of rage. She threw herself forward, grabbed Kola's fallen machete with both hands, and swung wild. The blade caught Baba Kadiri across the back of his legs, not deep, not clean, but enough to throw off his strike. His machete glanced off Kola's shoulder instead of splitting his skull. Baba Kadiri stumbled, turned on Zainabu with murder in his eyes. Foolish girl! Kola moved on instinct, dove for his knife, the one still tucked in his belt, came up fast, drove the blade up under Baba Kadiri's ribs, angled toward the heart, exactly the way the man had taught him years ago. Never hesitate, Baba Kadiri had said once. The moment you see the opening, you take it. No mercy, no second thoughts. Baba Kadiri's eyes went wide. He looked down at the knife buried in his chest, then at Kola. Then, impossibly, he smiled. Good, he whispered. You remembered. I taught you well. I'm sorry, Kola said, and meant it. Don't be. We both knew it would end like this. The river takes everyone eventually. Blood bubbled at the corner of Baba Kadiri's mouth. But listen. Listen closely. I'm not the only one who knows you're alive now. The other bosses, they'll hear about tonight. About the ghost who came back. And they'll come for you. For your wife. For everyone you love. Let them come. Brave words. We'll see. Baba Kadiri's legs gave out. Kola lowered him to the ground, stayed with him while the light faded from those cold stone eyes. The river never forgets, Baba Kadiri said with his last breath. And it never forgives. Then he was gone. Kola knelt there for a long moment, knife still in his hand, blood pooling around his knees. He'd been killed before, many times. But this felt different. This felt like killing a piece of himself. The piece that had believed strength meant never showing weakness. That had believed survival meant never trusting anyone. Baba Kadiri had been wrong about almost everything. But he'd been right about one thing. The river remembered, and what happened in that warehouse would echo forward, would create ripples that would touch everyone Kola loved. Kola, Zainabu's voice small and broken. Kola, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I didn't think they would. You didn't think. He stood slowly. Every part of him hurt. You didn't think about the consequences. Didn't think about what your pride and jealousy would cost. You exposed me because you wanted control, wanted to own me. And now a man is dead. Now I'm a killer again. Now everyone I love is in danger. I didn't mean, I don't care what you meant, his voice echoed off warehouse walls. Intent doesn't matter when the damage is done. You disrespected my wife. You threatened to expose my past. You led them straight to me. And for what? For what, Zainabu? She was crying now, ugly, desperate tears. Because I loved you. Because I thought if I could just make you choose me, if I could make you see that she was boring and I was exciting, that she was safe and I was alive. I am married. I have a child coming. And you were just... He stopped. Couldn't finish. Because the truth was ugly and saying it out loud would make it real. I was just what? Her voice turned sharp, even through the tears. Just your bit on the side? Just the excitement you needed because your saint of a wife couldn't give you that? Yes. The word hung between them like a verdict. Yes, that's exactly what you were. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry I let you believe it was more. I'm sorry I dishonored my wife and my marriage and everything I was trying to become. But this blood, this death, this is on both of us. And now we both have to live with it. Mama Ejiro stepped forward, pressed a cloth to the cut on Kola's arm. Police will come soon. Someone must have heard the fighting. You need to decide what happens next. What happens next is I go home to my wife. I confess everything. I face whatever she decides. And her? Mama Ejiro nodded towards Zainabu. Kola looked at the woman who'd been his lover, who'd destroyed his peace, who'd just saved his life. She leaves Igbo Odo. Tonight, and she never comes back. Kola, please, I have nowhere to... That's not my problem anymore. You made your choices. Now live with them. Or don't. But either way, you're gone. Sirens in the distance. Getting closer. Mama Ejiro grabbed Kola's good arm. There's a boat at the south dock. Take it. Go home the riverway. Avoid the roads. And Kola. Her old eyes were wet. Whatever your wife decides, you accept it. You hear me? That woman stood by you when no one else would. She deserves the truth. Kola nodded. Turned to leave. Stopped. I looked back at Zainabu one last time. I hope you find whatever it was you were looking for, but you won't find it in another woman's husband. Then he walked out into the night, leaving behind the bodies and the blood and the woman who'd loved him in all the wrong ways. The river was black glass under a clouded moon. Kola rowed the small boat with mechanical precision, each stroke sending ripples across water that had seen too much, carried too much, remembered too much. His wounds had stopped bleeding, but they throbbed with each movement. He'd need stitches, needed antibiotics probably, needed a lot of things he wasn't going to get tonight. Behind him, Igbo Odo's lights faded to pinpricks. Ahead, somewhere in the darkness, was home. Was Mariam. Was the conversation that would either save him or destroy him. He'd been killed tonight. Killed Baba Kadiri, the man who'd been like a father when Kola's real father had abandoned him. Killed the last connection to the life he'd tried to leave behind, and somehow that killing felt like freedom and damnation all at once. The elders had a saying his grandmother used to repeat, "A snake that refuses to bite will be swallowed by another snake." Kola had spent 3 years refusing to bite, trying to be gentle, trying to be good. And the river had swallowed him anyway. Maybe that was the lesson. Maybe there was no escaping what you were. Maybe the best you could hope for was choosing who you became in the spaces between violence. He tied the boat at a small dock near his house, walked through back streets still deserted at this hour, and let himself in through the kitchen door. The house was dark except for a single lamp burning in the living room. Mariam sat in her chair, hands folded in her lap, waiting. She didn't look up when he entered, just kept staring at her hands. "You're alive," she said quietly. "Yes." "Is she?" "Yes." "Hurt, but alive." "And Baba Kadiri?" "Dead." Now Mariam looked up. Her face was unreadable. "By your hand?" "By my hand." She nodded slowly, like she'd expected this, like she'd already made peace with what her husband was. "Sit down. You're bleeding through your shirt." Kola sat. Mariam fetched her medical supplies, the same box she'd used to patch him up 3 years ago when he'd crawled out of the river more dead than alive. She cleaned his wounds without speaking, her touch gentle but clinical. When she got to the deep cut on his forearm, she paused. "This one needs a hospital." "I know." "We'll go in the morning. Say it was an accident at the depot," she resumed, bandaging. "The police came by earlier, asked if I'd seen you. I said you were working late. They said there was an incident at the docks, multiple casualties, that they'd be back with questions. Mama Ejiro will give me an alibi, others too. The Black Oars have friends in the department. So you'll get away with it, the murder." No judgment in her voice, just a statement of fact. "Probably." "Good," she tied off the bandage. "Because our child needs a father who's alive, not imprisoned." Kola's throat tightened. "Mariam, I need to tell you." "I know. I've known for weeks. About her. About the affair." She sat back in her chair, one hand resting on her stomach. "I smelled her perfume on you. Saw the way you left the house on Thursdays. The way you lied so carefully about where you'd been." "Then why didn't you say anything?" "Because I was waiting to see if you'd choose. If you'd wake up one day and remember what we built together. Remember that peace. Real peace. Is worth more than excitement." Her voice cracked. "But you didn't choose. You just kept one foot in each world, thinking you could have both until both worlds collided and nearly killed you. I'm sorry." "God, Mariam, I'm so sorry." "Are you? Or are you just sorry you got caught?" She leaned forward. "Tell me the truth. All of it. Do you love her?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Kola thought about it. Really thought. About Zainabu's laugh and her fire and the way she'd made him feel alive. But being alive wasn't the same as being happy. Being alive wasn't the same as home. "No," he said finally. "I don't think I ever did. She was just an escape. From responsibility. From trying to be good. From the work of being a man worth keeping. And now? What is she now? Gone. I sent her away. Told her to leave Igbo Odo and never come back." Mariam was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. "Do you want to keep this marriage? More than anything? Then hear me clearly. I will forgive this. I will forgive the affair, the lies, even the fact that you nearly got yourself killed for her. I will forgive it because I love you and because our child deserves a father. But I will never forget it. And if you ever dishonor me like this again, I will take our child and you will never see either of us again. Not because I'm cruel, because I refuse to teach my child that love means accepting disrespect." "I understand. Do you? Do you really?" Her eyes blazed now. "Because here's what you don't understand yet. I'm not staying because I'm weak. I'm not forgiving because I'm desperate. I'm staying because I choose to believe that you can be better than you were, that the man I married is still in there somewhere under all the violence and stupidity. But Kola, I need you to prove it. Every single day, I need you to wake up and choose me, choose us, choose the life we're building over the excitement of whatever else calls to you. I will. I swear on everything, I will." Swearing is easy. Doing is hard. She stood slowly, tired in a way that went beyond physical. "Come to bed. We'll deal with the police in the morning. Deal with whatever comes next. But tonight, just sleep. You've lost enough blood." He followed her to their room, lay down beside her in the darkness. Mariam turned her back to him, curled around the child growing inside her. Kola stared at the ceiling and listened to her breath and wondered if forgiveness was always this heavy, this weighted with conditions and ultimatums, and the knowledge that trust once broken never quite fit back together the same way. Mariam, thank you for not giving up on me. I haven't yet, but I'm tired, Kola. So tired of fighting for a marriage that should be easy, that should be safe. So please, please don't make me regret this. I won't. You better not. Her voice was already fading into sleep. Because next time, I won't send you to save her. I'll let the river have you both. Kola closed his eyes. Outside, rain had started again. That soft, persistent rain that would last until morning. Somewhere in the night, Zainabu was leaving Igbo Odo, carrying with her the scars and lessons of wanting what wasn't hers. Somewhere else, police were processing a crime scene, collecting evidence, taking statements that would all mysteriously point away from Kola Adeyemi, quiet bus driver, family man, nobody important. And in the river, Baba Kadiri's blood was mixing with water, flowing downstream, feeding whatever hungry thing waited at the mouth where fresh water met salt. The river never forgets. But maybe it could forgive. 3 months passed. The rainy season peaked and began to fade. The police investigation into the dock killings went cold, filed away with dozens of other unsolved cases that everyone knew would never be solved because no one wanted them solved. The Black Oars fractured without Baba Kadiri, splitting into smaller crews that fought each other for territory, while the old guard slowly faded into memory. Igbo Odo moved on the way cities do, absorbing tragedy and violence and blood into its foundation and growing over the cracks. Kola kept driving his bus. Same routes, same passengers, same quiet efficiency. But something had changed. He moved through the world differently now, like a man who died and come back. The other drivers noticed, started giving him space, started calling him Oga with a respect that had nothing to do with age. They didn't know what he'd done, but they sensed it, the way animals sense storms coming. Mariam grew round with pregnancy, moved through the house touching her stomach, talking to the child inside, preparing in all the ways women prepare. She was cordial to Kola, polite, but the warmth was gone. That easy affection they'd once shared had been replaced with something more careful, more measured. She loved him still, he thought, but it was a guarded love now, a love with conditions. On Thursday evenings he came home early, helped her cook, sat with her on the veranda and talked about small things. The baby's room. Names they might choose. What kind of father he wanted to be. She listened, commented, but never quite met his eyes, like looking at him directly would remind her of things she was trying to forget. One evening, 6 weeks before the baby was due, she finally asked the question he'd been waiting for. What do you think about her? Kola set down his cup. Sometimes. What do you think about it? How I failed her. How I failed you. How I failed everyone by trying to live 2 lives. He turned to face her. But mostly I think about how close I came to losing you. To lose this. He gestured at the house, the sunset, her swollen belly. Everything is real. She loved you, you know, in her own broken way. Maybe, but love without wisdom is just destruction with feelings attached. Mariam almost smiled. That's good. Did you make that up? No. Mama Ejiro said it to me last week. She's been checking on me, making sure I'm walking straight. That old woman is wise. Mariam paused. I saw Zainabu. Kola's blood went cold. What? When? I thought she left. She did. But she came back 2 weeks ago. Came to the market. Came straight to me. Mariam's hand moved to her stomach protectively. I was buying plantains and I turned around and there she was. Thinner. Older somehow. She asked if she could talk to me. What did you say? I said yes. We walked to Mama Toyan's stall, had tea. And she apologized. I really apologized. Not the fake kind where you're just trying to make yourself feel better. The kind that costs something. Kola didn't know what to say. Couldn't picture it. His wife and his former lover sitting down to tea like civilized humans. She told me everything, Mariam continued. How insecure she was. How she thought making me look small would make her look big. How she didn't understand that you can't steal a man. You can only borrow him temporarily until he remembers where home is. She took a sip of her tea. She's leaving for real this time, going to Abuja. Has a cousin there who runs a shop. Said she needed to tell me she was sorry before she left. Said she couldn't carry it anymore. Did you forgive her? I told her forgiveness wasn't mine to give. That she needed to forgive herself. That shame is heavy enough without adding grudges to it. Mariam looked at Kola then. Really looked at him. I told her that people make mistakes. That the mistake isn't the end unless we make it the end. That sometimes we have to burn down who we were to become who we need to be. You're a better person than me. No, I'm just tired of hate. It's exhausting, carrying anger around. It takes too much energy. The energy I need for this baby. For rebuilding this marriage, for choosing hope when cynicism would be easier. Kola reached for her hand. She let him take it. They sat like that, fingers intertwined, watching the sun sink toward the river. In the distance, drums started up. Someone's celebration. Birth or wedding or just Friday night. And the need to remind themselves they were alive. I'm going to be better, Kola said. Not perfect, but better. Every day, small choices, coming home early, telling the truth, being present. I know I can't undo what I did. Can't go back and choose differently, but I can choose better now, tomorrow, next week, next year. I know, I see you trying. But Kola, you need to understand something. She turned to face him. I didn't forgive you for you. I forgave you for me, because staying angry was killing me. Was killing us. Was killing this baby before it even got born. So I chose peace. Choose to believe in possibility. But that doesn't mean the work is done. That just means we get to do the work together instead of apart. I understand. Do you? Because the work is boring. It's not exciting. It's not passion. It's just showing up, being consistent, keeping promises, changing diapers and washing dishes and having the same conversations 1,000 times. It's choosing me when I'm tired and swollen and cranky. Choosing me when I'm old and my beauty fades. Choosing me when life gets hard and some other woman makes you feel young again. That's the work. And I need to know if you're capable of it. Kola thought about the warehouse, about Baba Kadiri's last words, about the river and its long memory. He thought about all the ways he'd failed and the few ways he'd succeeded. Thought about the child coming and the man that child would need him to be. I'm capable, he said. Not because I'm strong, because I've seen what happens when I'm not. I've seen the damage, the blood, the broken people. I've lived the alternative. And Mariam, I'd rather die than go back to that. I'd rather be bored and faithful than excited and destructive. I'd rather be your husband, this baby's father, a man who keeps his word than anything else. Anything. She studied his face for a long time. Then nodded. Okay. Then we try. We do the work. We build something good out of the ashes of what almost was. Together. Together. That night, for the first time in months, she let him hold her as they slept. Not with passion, just with presence. His hand on her stomach, feeling their child move, her back against his chest. Both of them are breathing. Both of them choose. Both of them hoped that choice would be enough. Before we get to what happened next, before we see if Kola kept his promise or if the river called him back again, I need you to do something. Subscribe to African Folktale by Dera if you haven't already. Like this video. And comment below. Tell me, do you believe people can really change? Can someone with a violent past become peaceful? Can a man who betrayed his wife earn trust again? Tell me where you're watching from and what time it is. Because this story, it's not over. And what comes next will test everything Kola promised. 6 weeks later, Mariam went into labour on a Tuesday morning. Early. Too early, according to the midwife. But babies came when they wanted to come, and this one wanted to come now. Kola drove her to the hospital through morning traffic, holding her hand while she breathed through contractions, whispering that everything would be fine, even though neither of them knew if that was true. The labour lasted 14 hours. 14 hours of waiting and pacing and praying to a god Kola wasn't sure was listening to men like him. He sat in the corridor while Mariam screamed behind closed doors, bringing their child into a world that was beautiful and broken in equal measure. Mama Ejiro came, sat beside him. Didn't say anything, just sat. Sometimes that was enough. At 7 in the evening, a nurse came out smiling. You have a son. Both mother and baby are healthy. Kola felt something break open in his chest. Not break apart. Break open. Like his heart was a door he'd kept locked, and suddenly it was wide and light was pouring through. He followed the nurse into the room where Mariam lay exhausted, holding a small bundle wrapped in blue cloth. She looked up when he entered, smiled, really smiled. The first real smile in months. Come meet your son, Kola approached slowly, afraid somehow that this was a dream, that he'd wake up and it would all be gone. But when Mariam placed the baby in his arms, when he felt that small warm weight, that tiny perfect life, he knew this was real. More real than violence, more real than the river, more real than anything he'd ever done or been. He has your eyes, Mariam said. He has your strength. He has both of us. The good parts. We'll make sure of that. Kola looked down at his son's face, red and wrinkled and beautiful. And he made a promise. Not the kind of promise he'd made before, not the ones he'd broken or bent. A promise he carved into his bones. This child would never know the man he used to be, would never see his father's hands covered in blood. I would grow up with peace and stability and a father who came home every night. Who kept his word, who chose family over everything else. What should we name him? Mariam asked. You choose. No. Together. We choose together. They settled on Damila. God has vindicated me, because that's what this child was. Vindication. Proof that people could change, that the river didn't have to win, that peace was possible if you wanted it badly enough. 2 years passed. Damila learned to walk, to talk, to laugh in that pure, unself-conscious way children laugh before the world teaches them to be careful. Kola drove his bus and came home and played with his son and helped his wife with dinner, and somewhere along the way, the work of being faithful stopped feeling like work. It became who he was. Not the man who'd killed Baba Kadiri, not the man who'd betrayed his marriage, just Kola, father, husband, bus driver. Nobody special. Nobody is important. And that was perfect. But the river remembered. The river is always remembered. It came in the form of a phone call on a random Thursday morning. Officer Taiwo's voice on the other end, urgent and low. Kola, we need to talk. Somewhere private. They met at Mama Ejiro's house. Officer Taiwo looked tired, older than he should. Baba Kadiri had a son. Did you know that? Kola's blood went cold. No. Nobody did. He kept the boy hidden. Sent him away to school in the north after his mother died. But the boy's grown now, 22. And he's been asking questions. About what happened to his father. About who killed him. What kind of questions? The kind that ends in violence. He's already back in Igbo Odo. Already talking to people, building alliances. And, Kola, he knows about you. Know about your wife and your son. Know where you live. The old fear came back. The hyper-awareness. The calculation of angles and exits and who was vulnerable. Kola closed his eyes. What do you want me to do? I don't know. Hide, maybe. Leave the city. Or, Officer Taiwo didn't finish. I didn't need to. Or kill him before he kills me. I didn't say that. But you're thinking about it. Officer Taiwo stood to leave. I'm thinking that some debts never get paid. They just get passed down. And I'm thinking that you have a family now, a son. So you do whatever you need to do to protect them. That's all. After he left, Kola sat with Mama Ejiro in silence. Finally she spoke. The river never stops flowing. I know. So what will you do? I don't know. He put his head in his hands. I promised Mariam. Promised I'd never go back to that life. Promised our son would never see that version of me. Then keep your promise. How? If this boy comes for me, if he threatens my family, then you do what the river taught you. Mama Ejiro's voice was firm. You adapt. You flow around obstacles. You don't fight the current. You use it. She leaned forward. This boy, he's angry, righteous, thinks he's avenging his father. Those kinds of men make mistakes, get sloppy. You stay smart, stay patient, stay alive. Eventually the river takes him too. Take everyone. Kola went home. Mariam was in the kitchen, Damila on her hip, both of them laughing at something. When she saw Kola's face, she stopped laughing. What happened? He told her. All of it. The sun. The threat. The choice he'd have to make. When he finished, Mariam set Damila down, told him to go play in his room. Then she turned to Kola with steel in her eyes. We're not running. Mariam, if he comes here, we're not running, she repeated. You've spent 3 years being better, being faithful, being the man our son needs. I'm not letting some angry boy destroy that. We stay. We live our lives. And if he comes, she paused, then we deal with it, together. But we don't become the thing we fought to leave behind unless there's no other choice. And if there's no other choice, then you do what you have to do. And I'll forgive you for that too. Because protecting your family isn't the same as being violent. It's being a father, and fathers protect. So they stayed, lived their lives. Kola drove his bus. Mariam raised their son. And every day Kola waited for the knock on the door that would mean the river had come full circle. But days turned to weeks, turned to months, and the knock never came. Until one morning, almost a year later, Officer Taiwo called again. He's dead. Baba Kadiri's son. Got into a fight at a bar in Warri. Someone stabbed him. Bled out before the ambulance arrived. Kola didn't know what to feel. Relief? Guilt? Both? So it's over? It's over. The last thread connecting you to that life is cut. You're free, Kola. Really free. After he hung up, Kola walked to the river, stood at the edge where water met land, thought about Baba Kadiri and his son and all the violence that had echoed forward until it finally consumed itself. Thought about Mariam's forgiveness and Mama Ejiro's wisdom and his son's laugh. Thought about the man he used to be and the man he was becoming. The river flowed past, dark and endless, always moving, always remembering, but also always changing. Same water, different current, same river, different man standing on its banks. Kola pulled the protection charm Mariam had given him years ago from his pocket, the one he'd carried through the warehouse fight, the one that had kept him alive when he should have died. He'd kept it all this time, a reminder of debt and grace and second chances. He threw it into the river. I watched it disappear beneath the surface. Thank you, he whispered. To the river, to Mariam. Whatever force had let him survive long enough to become something better than he was. Then he turned his back on the water and walked home. To his wife, to his son, to the quiet, ordinary, beautiful life he'd fought and bled and changed to deserve. The river never forgets. But it lets go. Eventually. If you're patient enough. If you're willing to do the work. If you keep choosing better even when better is harder. This is an African folktale by Dera. If this story moved you, If Kola's journey from violence to peace spoke to something in your heart, then subscribe right now. Like this video and comment below. Tell me, do you believe in redemption? Do you believe people can change? Tell me where you're watching from and what time it is. Because stories like this, stories about blood and love and the long road back to being human, these are the stories that remind us why we're here. Thank you for staying until the end. Thank you for witnessing Kola's story. And remember, the river flows for all of us. The question is whether we fight it or learn to swim. If you're still here, if your heart is still racing from what Kola just went through, then you understand something most people don't. You understand that some stories don't end when the credits roll. They echo. They haunt. They demand answers. Baba Kadiri's son is dead. The river took him. But here's what I didn't tell you. Here's what kept me up at night after writing this story. 3 days after that boy died in Warri, someone sent Mariam a photograph. Just a photograph. No message. No threat. Just an image of their son, Damillah, playing outside their house, taken from across the street, by someone watching. The river doesn't just remember, it keeps receipts. So if you want part 2, and trust me, after what I just told you, you need part 2. Here's what I need from you. Not for me, for the story, for Kola, for everyone who's ever tried to run from their past and thought they'd finally made it. Hit that like button right now. Don't scroll away. Don't tell yourself you'll do it later. Do it now. Then drop a comment. Just 2 words. Part 2. That's it. Let me see how many of you are ready to walk back into that river with Kola one more time. And here's the most important part. Share this video. Send it to someone who needs to hear that people can change. Send it to someone who's running from something. Send it to someone who believes redemption is possible. Because part 2? Part 2 is about whether redemption survives when the past refuses to stay buried. I'll be watching the comments. I'll be counting the likes. And when I see that you're ready, when I see that this story matters to you as much as it matters to me, I'll bring you part 2. But only if you prove you want it. Like, comment part 2, share. The river is waiting. Are you?